All right, I haven't really said this since like the first video, so I should probably say it again now. Um, this is not meant to be watched by itself. Like obviously, like you can do what you want, right? I'm not going to stop you, but all this video is like my afterthought to the chapter, just me rambling. The ramblings that I used to put at the end of the videos, I just made them separate videos now, just so I can go a bit longer and talk about more stuff. So yeah, this entire video is under the assumption that you have either read the chapter or have at least watched the video. I mean, if you watch it by yourself, you can probably still understand it, but, you know, why tempt fate? Anyway, so after, the events of Kowloon, the heterozone starts expanding again, and, conservation areas are getting overrun, and the hetero creatures are starting to, push against the boundary to the clean zone. And, they send a bunch of elite squads to handle it. The Grey Raven goes down there, minus Lee, because Lee's chilling in Babylonia, trying to build a second immune frame. Lucia and Liv, they go down there with Commandant. They fight off some hetero creatures. They find Lucille. Commandant gets shipped back to Babylonia to help with the other plot line that's happening, which is them looking into Gestalt. And so while Commandant is up in Babylonia, helping Teddy, search through Gestalt so that they can find files to remake the Inver device, Lucia and Liv are kind of just walking around lost on the surface. And then kind of mixed in there in the middle is another plot line with, Leonardo, Teddy, and Victoria, and Charles, the whole Norman family, and their obsession with Dominic. So Norman is sending down a bunch of constructs, right? They're heralds to try and find Dominic's legacy, which, all they do is keep sending people to die. Teddy finds her Inver device files, slaps that on. She goes down to the surface. They meet up with Lucia and Liv, who finally got out of the hetero zone. And then Teddy puts hands on Cradle. Right after whooping Cradle, they go back to Babylonia. Commandant has his conversation with Dominic from the invitation. And then after that, Parliament decides to bust down some of Gestalt's data walls, and they figured out that was a very bad idea. So, for the chapter overall, right, 6 out of 10 for me. If you didn't hear before, 1 through 17, that's all a 5, but node 18 by itself is 1 point, because I really like that last node, so that's a whole point. So 6 out of 10 for me total. So the stuff I really liked about the chapter is, like I was saying back in Polaris Bond, I think it's better to jump between plot points than to focus on one thing for too long, because then that one thing gets stale and you start getting really annoyed at it. So I'm glad to see they fixed that in this chapter. It's just unfortunately, one of those plot lines with Lucia and Liv just being lost in the forest was just so unimaginably boring. I actually liked the Norman stuff. I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting to see. A thing I didn't like, however, is that they spent so much time talking about Dominic. Every third word in the chapter is Dominic, and yet we learn absolutely nothing about Dominic. At this point, Dominic's not real. Okay, Dominic is a figment of everyone's imagination. There is no Dominic in Ba Sing Se. At this point, I'm with Teddy. Who cares? Who cares about Dominic? But going back to the Norman stuff, right? We have Teddy, who really dislikes any conversation regarding Dominic because everyone kind of puts their hopes on Dominic, and they believe so heavily in this person who's not even around, who they don't even know if he's alive or not. And if he is alive, then, he's doing nothing, presumably. And she thinks it's kind of crazy that everybody's putting all of their hopes, and everything that happens, everybody's praise Dominic. And she's like, hold on now, Dominic didn't do that. We did that. Science Council, Engineering Force, we did that. Which is why she's like, you guys are crazy for thinking, oh, Dominic's gonna come back and save everyone. Dominic didn't save everyone the first time. Or, maybe he did. We don't know what happened inside Reactor 1. But point is, she just doesn't like blind faith. And then on to the other Norman, there's Leonardo, who, throughout the entire game so far, we kind of thought he was maybe a little more on the evil side. Like, definitely not like good, but like definitely more like self-serving. Then we find out that he's just a really good big brother. He's just like, if it means that, you know, my little sisters can live, you know, their lives carefree, then, you know, I'll get my hands dirty as many times as it takes. And I relate to that, so that's pretty cool. Definitely a good addition onto his character. Gives him a bit more depth to show that he cares about like other stuff. That outward fuckboy persona that he has is just that. It's just a persona that he uses to, you know, distract from the stuff that he really cares about. And when you work with people like Collins and Corono, hiding what you truly care about is pretty important. And then there is the baby of the family, Victoria, who was always like raised by herself, because she was just kind of getting groomed to be the successor of the company. And, you know, Charles was like, your two siblings are traitors. I don't want you around them. They're going to influence you. I need you to serve my interests. So he always used the excuse of her recovering from some like terminal illness to keep her like locked up. And she also has this like tough facade. That's a common thing between all three of the siblings. They all have this really tough exterior to like hide how sensitive they really are. Because like with Victoria, after she learned that Norman took her place on the transport to lead the Heralds, you know, she breaks down crying and she's like, Teddy, please save Oni-chan. He's going to die down there. I just wanted to protect you guys and stop the Project Herald that kept killing people. But yeah, anyway, overall, I really like the Norman siblings. I think they're pretty cool. Who I think is not cool is Charles. Looking back on it, I don't think I put any scenes with him in the video. I don't know, I can't remember. I don't think I did though. He kind of looks like Colonel Sanders. He looks like this. But the reason I didn't kind of put him in there is because every scene that he has, this is not an exaggeration, every scene he has, every single one, it's just him absolutely throating Dominic. Like, it's just, he spends the entire chapter going, oh, Dominic. And it's, I was like, oh my god, dude, come on, please, calm down. Dominic's dead. He's long gone, buddy. Wrap it up. But yeah, really, the only thing that he needs to be present for is just to be like this imaginary force that the three siblings are trying to escape from. Beyond that, he doesn't really do much. Like, if he never showed up in the chapter, like, at all, it really wouldn't change anything. Moving on, we have the best friend duo, Lucille and Mika, but we're gonna do Lucille first. So they meet Lucille, you know, when they're fighting off the hetero creatures, and she runs her Sunshine Brigade Battalion group. I don't know, I forgot the name of it because it's like way too long, but I would have liked to talk about Lucille, you know, a little more, maybe include a couple more of her scenes, but she doesn't do anything. And now we know why she doesn't do anything. It's because she was going to die the entire time. But yeah, her entire thing, she shows up, she helps the team out a little bit, and they travel together with her group, and, you know, she helps defend them when they're being yelled at by the other refugee group. And then she kind of just goes the entire chapter going, wow, guys, this is gonna go great. We're gonna be fine. Liv too. Liv was also doing that. Liv was like, don't worry, guys. We're all gonna make it out of this alive. And that's when I knew everyone was going to die. But yeah, at the very end, she sacrifices herself along with like half of her group to blow a path in the hetero zone and let everyone, you know, escape. Poor Lucille, she deserved better. When I am in a killing potentially cool characters contest and my opponent is Kuro Games, she had such a good design. Her design had way too much effort put into it for her to last one chapter. I mean, look at her. She's missing no meals. And then there's Mika, who is, you know, working on Babylonia, and, you know, she had a teacher who invited her up there. We have no idea who the teacher is, but point is, Mika's up there, and she's working on the Inver device, and she's working because she wants to earn a spot for Lucille, right? Because like Babylonia doesn't just like let people in, right? Sometimes they let like refugees in, but most of the time it's you got to be useful because there's a really limited amount of space up there. So she's working to like earn a spot, which is why Lucille's last request to the team is tell Mika that I'm still on the surface, alive and well, so that, you know, she doesn't lose her motivation to do what she's doing. Next is Cradle, who, you know, she's continuing her stuff, just, you know, making civilizations. We see that she has learned capitalism. So, oh no. Oh, yikes, the AC just turned on. Anyway, so Cradle is, you know, Cradle is managing the hetero creatures, and, you know, that's when we get the big elephant in the room. Schultz, why are you here? Why is he still here? I thought he was dead. Did Nanami not kill him? Did Nanami not pull a Vision Ultron? And on top of that, why does he look like Purple Sauron? I'm so confused. Also, look at him. Look at him. He robbed Lando's grave. That is Lando's coat. What are you doing? He's so weird. He's such a weirdo. He grave robbed his dead dad. Anyway, that means I definitely misspoke last chapter because I said their partnership had ended. Apparently not. Apparently they're still chilling around with each other. And even Cradle is shocked that he's able to contact her. She's like, Emperor, that's weird. How are you talking to me? Did you sneak your phone while Nanami had you in timeout? But yeah, I have absolutely no idea what's happening over there. I don't know. Maybe he escaped. Either he escaped or maybe he just like snuck some contact or something. Or maybe like split a portion of himself off. No, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He's not actually Ultron. Alright, but moving on to Trojan, who in one singular node became the most important character in terms of understanding what happened to Reactor 1. She is literally the closest living person who was at the reactor. She was there on the scene. She was there before even Dominic showed up. And out of everyone who was there, she's the only one who's alive. Everyone else is either dead or Dominic. And then, I mean, I was going to talk about Dominic, but I can talk about Dominic later. Alright, so moving on to just like stuff that's kind of happening. You know, Lee was up in Babylonia and they're working on making a second immune frame. Right? If you didn't get it, Project Herald is just Project Herald and Dominic's Legacy, both of them, they're just delusion. So just Project Herald is just Norman sending constructs down to the surface to die, right? To try and catch Dominic's Legacy. And then we find out that Dominic's Legacy is just the notes that were left behind by the soldiers and from Dominic. Because, you know, Dominic wrote down on a sticky note how to turn off the reactor. He was like, hey guys, in case I die, here's how you turn off the reactor. And then Charles was like, oh yes, Dominic, you genius. I'm gonna kill thousands to get that sticky note. And then he killed thousands. If you didn't catch it, right, Praying Mantis, Crow from Praying Mantis, he's the construct that Lee, actually looking back, I don't remember if I mentioned him by name or not. Whatever. Crow is a construct who was helping Lee escape Babylonia during the Hetero Tower incident. Eventually, Crow also, you know, succumbed to the light, so Lee had to slap him in his mouth, but he was there, and he was originally helping Lee get out of Babylonia. So nice to see him again. When Karenina is talking about Teddy going down to the surface, she stresses that, like, Teddy's frame is extremely average. Like, her frame is not specialized at all. It's a completely basic standard frame. Which, then you gotta think about the fact that she put hands on Cradle. So Cradle just sucks at fighting. Like, she's just garbage at combat. Which, you know, makes sense, because every time Cradle fights somebody, her first and usually last move is spam Red Tide. and most things can't handle spamming Red Tide, so she usually just wins fights like that. But the moment someone is able to get past Red Tide, she gets thrown into a wall. And I do want to reiterate, make this clear, Teddy was not like stronger than Cradle, and like Cradle wasn't even really taking damage. She was just like, oh, wow, you're stronger than I thought. I thought you were a 1, but you were actually a 2. Congratulations. That's like the extent of what was happening here. She was really just like messing around, testing herself. Well, I say she was testing herself, but that huff she did in the cutscene seemed kind of real to me. You broke my harp? Now I'm angry. And then Teddy slams her into another wall. But yeah, she left not because, Teddy was winning or anything. She left because Lee was coming, and Lee is an actual problem. Because she can't spam Red Tide at Lee, and even if Teddy wasn't going to beat her, if Teddy was capable of landing a single hit, then Lee would have dog walked her, because his combat skill is like second only to Lucia, and he has the strongest frame, so Cradle would have actually just died. And then lastly, for this, there is Nanami, who, built this immersion machine in Babylonia when she was visiting one day, and it just so happens to work perfectly with this Dominic invitation. So there we go, clutch Nanami again. Alright, so on to the cool stuff. Alright, so starting with like real Dominic, like I said, one of the things I hate about the chapter, Dominic, but we know nothing about Dominic. Don't get me wrong, right? The meaning of the chapter did not go over my head. I know the meaning of the chapter is like breaking free from the past, in which in this case the past is Dominic, and putting reliance in yourself and not just hoping that someone from way back will come and save you. The importance of like doing stuff yourself. Alright, and that concludes the Dominic talk because there's nothing else to talk about. Ha. Now on to quote-unquote Dominic. Got a little bit more. So we learned that AI I'm gonna call him AI Dominic. So we learned that AI Dominic was actually infected with the memetics prior to being uploaded to Gestalt. So originally I thought Dominic was uploaded like clean, and then when the memetics infected Gestalt to send out the commands, then Dominic took the memetics into itself and then sealed itself into Gestalt. Apparently that's not true. Apparently it was infected before even that happened. And since AI Dominic is the memory data of the real Dominic, that means the real Dominic also had these memetics before being sent to Reactor 1. So now where I'm back to having the question of what the heck happened with those commands. I mean, unless it's something like AI Dominic was just like a little bit infected with the memetics, and then it decided, whatever, since I'm already 1% infected, I might as well take in the other 99%, and then it became super infected. It said, well, I already have my toe in, so might as well jump into the deep end. Or maybe it's got nothing to do with the memetics in the first place, and it was infected with the memetics, but there's also this thing that Dominic is holding back, and we don't know what it is because it literally doesn't have a name. Dominic just calls this thing it, and that its name shouldn't be spoken or can't be spoken or something like that. So maybe it wasn't the memetics that Dominic sealed away in Gestalt. Maybe it was that thing that Dominic sealed while in Gestalt. Let's see. There's also a lot of weird things that they were talking about in that conversation. Like apparently the punishing virus isn't a mistake. It's supposed to be here. It's just here too early. And it seems like everything is getting here too early, right? The punishing virus got here too early. The hetero tower got here too early. Has anything been on time? Another thing, AI Dominic is speculating that the real Dominic's disappearance is related to the Omega effect. And if you don't remember, the Omega effect is the thing that they got from Atlantis, where the scientists managed to find this form of energy that can absorb the punishing virus. So is that trying to say that like Dominic got absorbed by something? Or since we learned that everything in the universe is information, maybe the information that makes up Dominic, like even the information that makes up his body, was absorbed? Maybe, possibly, who knows? Oh, and then while on the topic of AI Dominic is literally just as useless as everyone else trying to talk about Dominic. Commandant's asking questions, and AI Dominic is like, I don't know, can't answer that. Where's Dominic? Can't answer that question, bro. What? It's like, okay, what's the punishing virus? Why is it here? Can't answer that either. Well, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Commandant's like, Dominic, you seem scared about this it being that's sealed inside of you. What is it? And then Dominic's like, I can't speak on that either. I'm sorry, you're useless. What can you speak on? Actually just here to rage bait people. Oh, I'm gonna answer your questions, but actually no. And the thing is, AI Dominic is actually the memory data of Dominic from before he went to Reactor 1, which means the real Dominic is going to be just like this. Oh, I can't. You're gonna be just this much of a rage baiter. You finally found me. And then he's gonna disappear like Oogway. He's gonna vanish into the dust. You found me. Congratulations. Wait, Dominic, are you gonna give us some answers? No. Woo, and fade away. So we also learned the Inver device is a technology that is beyond the current humanity, which I guess that makes sense. It's a really like futuristic tech. No one really understands how it functions, right? No one alive at least understands how it functions. And I know I said it came from like it's beyond humanity, as in like the future, but very specifically, Dominic says it belongs to an earlier time or maybe a later one, which is a little bit like, because what do you mean? Like it's from the past or the future? What the heck is that supposed to mean? Like looking at the fact that the name of the arc is called Infinite Loop, like that's the name of the arc. Maybe it's supposed to be saying that like time is like a circle in this case, and if you go far enough into the past, you end up back in the future, right? Because time is a circle, so if you go far enough left, you end up on the right side. And as for the 0-point reactors, okay, hold on, let me throw this in there. So I'm literally looking at the conversation, like right now in Hwashu, and all of these like squares, all of these like white squares that are in the middle of the conversation, if you substitute those squares either with the word Dominic or I, stuff starts to flow a bit more correctly. So like maybe Dominic is talking about itself in the third person. And the reason I think it's Dominic is because like when Commandant asks, are you Dominic? AI Dominic says yes and no. And it says like, square is simply the echo of Dominic's consciousness. So it would make sense if you put Dominic is simply the echo of Dominic's consciousness, right? Dominic has little time to converse, right? Dominic's purpose is to deliver this invitation to your hands. So that would make sense. But anyway, right after Commandant asks about these 0-point reactors, the line that comes like right directly after it is like, Dominic cannot discern right from wrong, yet Dominic undeniably attracted a flame that humanity cannot control. The Inver device was born from this. Dominic is seeking to rekindle hope in this transient civilization. And if you don't know what transient means like really quickly, or like it only lasts for like a really short period of time. So, Dominic is seeking to rekindle hope in this civilization that won't last very long. Meaning saving humanity, right? Because it means humanity is not going to last that long. And what I got from that is that all of this is Dominic's fault. This is all Dominic's fault. Dominic brought all this here to us. Thanks, Dominic. Moving on, So we also find this thing called the data wall, which is different from the computing power lock. So the computing power lock was imposed from the outside in. So presumably Babylonia limited the computing power of Gestalt, but the data wall is being maintained for, oh no, wait. Maybe it wasn't Babylonia that put the computing power lock. Anyway, moving on. So we learn about this data wall, which is being maintained from inside out. So it's whatever's inside of Gestalt is putting up the data wall to keep everyone else out, which is presumably those memetics, which is why Gestalt was like, dude, you shouldn't have released that information because you broke down that wall and now the memetics are leaking out. This is all notably different from the computing power lock, which was imposed from the outside in. And during this cutscene that's up here, if you look at the cutscene and like you see the data wall and inside of it you see this thing that's like sealed inside of it, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the Hetero Tower core. Like I know it relates to the Hetero Tower because Gestalt was talking about the tower when Asimov was asking about it, but it kind of looks like the core to the tower. I don't know if that has any like meaning right now, but I don't know. That's what it reminded me of. So like maybe it's supposed to be that's the other half of the core, or maybe the core of the tower is like currently nerfed and that thing will give it back its like true ability. I don't know. As of right now, it's just a cube behind a wall. So some other stuff. I should have said this earlier when I was talking about Cradle. But her boss fight is kind of weird because you look at her and when she transforms, right, she gets this new form. One, we finally find out what she's been hiding under that cloak. And two, she gets this scythe and her scythe kind of looks like a hetero creature that she like turned into a weapon. She really pulled a Yoru. That is hilarious to me. But when she's attacking you, it looks like she has this like Cthulhu magic circle. Like I thought her power was manipulating the red tide. Why does she have Lovecraft magic? And then, after the fight, she's talking about maybe it's still too soon. I should probably go get help. And the way I want to say she's talking about getting help from the Emperor, but because she's being vague and she says he, it wouldn't make any sense if she was talking about the Emperor, because we already know everything about the Emperor. It wouldn't be a shock if they just said, the Emperor, or get help from Schultz, because we already know everything about him. But she says he, and they're intentionally trying to keep it vague, so it's probably someone we don't know. Maybe it's maybe the consciousness that's sealed inside of Gestalt, right? The it that Dominic was talking about. Because Dominic did say that it was a consciousness that was in there, so maybe that is the it Cradle is talking about. How Cradle's going to get into Gestalt, who knows? But I'm also thinking that the consciousness within Gestalt, the it, is also what led them to opening up Gestalt's data wall in the first place. Like it set a trap, because it walked in, not it, they got in there, Teddy got in there, and they found the glitch within Gestalt's code that wasn't supposed to be there. They were like, what's that? They investigated, and then they found a file on the Inver device, which happened to be the exact thing they were looking for. Which, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So maybe that thing that's in there set that as a trap to make them go, oh, let's investigate this further. And then eventually they find the data wall and go, let's break that down. And then, of course, the backfire from hell. Oh, and then another thing to mention is after they beat Cradle, they finally managed to secure the city of Reactor 1. So I guess that means we finally get to go into Reactor 1 and maybe figure out what happened. But anyway, save the best stuff for last, because this is the part that I like the most. That last node. Ooh, I love that. I love it. So they finally break down the data wall. So the entire punishing virus, this entire incident started because humanity got greedy, right? Trillard was like, dude, we don't really need much more energy right now. We don't need a new power source. We're chilling just fine. And then everybody heard faster than light travel, and their greed kicked in, and they were like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. They did that, and then boom, punishing virus, you're getting slammed. So then skip 30 years, and humanity's not exactly winning the fight, but like they're not losing either. It's still like a back and forth, but they're making steady ground, right? They're at a decent pace, right? They're gaining ground. And what happened? They get greedy. They're like, we want the past. We want golden age. We want to be the ones who can write down in history, we stopped the punishing virus. Guess what? You got greedy. You opened the box, despite the fact that the 3 smartest people you have told you do not open that box. And you decided, nah, we're going to do our own thing. And then what happened? I am feeling so validated right now. Because what happened at the exact moment of the outbreak? Gestalt said the first thing she did was nuke the satellites, right? Shut down the satellites. And I told you, I said it was because the virus was going to take those satellites and just start beaming virus at people. Oh, the catharsis. I feel amazing right now. In their greed, they cracked that door open, and the very first thing the memetics did is, oh, unguarded satellites, don't mind if I do. Immediately took them over, and guess what? Now everyone on Earth is paying for it, because if you're not in the range of the clean zone, you're getting Wi-Fi infection. The way I knew this was going to happen. And from what we're seeing, it seems to be even worse than the regular virus. It seems to be like pure, like red tide strength. Because usually when you get infected, right, unless you're in like direct exposure, it usually takes you a little bit of time before you die, right, depending on how high the concentration is. But these people are like, they're like the blisters are showing up instantly. It's just like whoop. So it must be some like strong stuff they're dealing with. But anyway, GG bozos. You should not have opened that door. Can't put the cat back in that bag. I should have said this like way earlier, but to me the chapter kind of feels incomplete. Like it feels like this was, obviously it's like a setup chapter, or like the very last node is 100% setup for chapter 30. But it feels like they could have done what they did like in chapter 13, where you have like 2 halves of the same chapter. Because it feels like chapter 29 and presumably chapter 30 were supposed to be one chapter. But then they split it in half. But then to like pad the runtime, because they realized, oh, if we split this in half, it's only going to be like a 10 node chapter. Then they added the Lucia and Liv stuff onto chapter 29. So that it wouldn't feel too short. And that's why it kind of feels like tacked on there at the end and not like it's actually meant to be baked in. And if that's the case, I hope it also doesn't mean that chapter 30 is also going to feel incomplete. Or no, maybe what it will feel like is chapter 30 will feel like an ending, but it won't have a beginning. Which, you know, granted, it'll make sense because, like, you know, you're coming from the previous chapter, which was the start, but like, does that make sense? Like one chapter, like chapter 29 feels like it's only the first 50% of a chapter. And I'm worried that chapter 30 will feel like it's only the last 50% of a chapter. Like you'll be able to tell that chapter 30 was supposed to be a part of chapter 29. I just hope that's not what happens. I don't know. I don't know if you guys get that feeling. I don't know if I'm the only one. To be honest, by the time you guys see this video, I'll probably have already finished chapter 30. Like reading the chapter. So I'll probably know by then. Still, let me know how you guys feel about it. Okay, as for like the gameplay in the chapter, you know, kind of average. But until you get to the boss fight, I really liked the boss fight. I really did. I don't remember fighting Cradle in her chapter release. I think I skipped it. I think I was just like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then the patch ended. So I was like, oh, I never got to fight Cradle. Because I don't remember her doing this stuff. And of course, when you fight her in Pain Cage, she's not doing all of her like phase 2 stuff. So I think that might have been like the first time I'd seen it. And it was super cool. She's super cool. Super fun to fight. As for the music, I really, really liked Cradle's theme. And I actually really like the theme for the chapter, the 29, like the login theme music. It's like the perfect blend of like serious, but like calm and also melancholic. And it's so like useful. That might be like a background insert song that I just start spamming because it just fits so many situations. You can use it when people are just talking about something sad. You can do it when there's danger. That's a very useful song. But Cradle's theme, I really liked Cradle's theme. I don't know how I've never heard it before. Literally, I don't know how I've never heard it before, but I really like it. First phase, right? It's so whimsical and innocent, and it's because like it feels like it's because she doesn't think she's doing anything bad, right? She's just doing what literally every other living organism has ever done. You consume things to survive, right? And even on a civilization scale, right? She learned it from humanity, right? In order for your civilization to grow and advance, you need resources you need to take from other civilizations. You have the conquerors and the conquered, and that's how civilization has, you know, progressed all the way up into the modern era. So she's like, I don't know what you guys are mad for. You've been doing it to each other for thousands of years, and now it's just your turn to be conquered. So what are you mad about? This is just the cycle of how things work. So, you know, it's so whimsical. It shows that she really is just like, oh yeah, I'm just doing what I'm doing. There's nothing wrong here. It's like also like inhuman, because you would think, oh, if you're trying to wipe out a civilization, maybe you'd be a bit more serious. She's like, nah, I'm not. I'm just doing my thing. And then there's like the second and third phase songs, which I just think they're good songs. I just think they sound nice. I'm a sucker for like those like choirs that you hear in the background. Da, 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 da. I'm a sucker for that stuff. And I like how the beat drop, there it is. The beat drop is Cradle's attack. It just feels so like interactive. Like, oh yeah, the boss also hears the music. Yikes. Okay, anyway, this recording is now longer than the recording for the actual chapter. So, anyway, let me know your thoughts, concerns, or speculations. And, I don't know how to make outros. Bye.